Okay, so let's talk about the latest news out of Oklahoma about a blatant violation of the separation of church and state, in that a publicly funded religious school, I think it's supposed to be a charter school, but whatever. There's a reason there are now publicly funded religious schools. We have a separation of church and state. And for better or worse, that's the way it should be. You just have to look at European history to see how bad it would be to force a religion on people. Because this isn't just about, oh, all religions will be publicly funded. No, this is going to turn into one religion. And not even one religion, but it could easily turn into one version of that religion. Because let's face it, Christianity has a lot of denominations. But anyway, let's get to the article. Let me just make this bigger so I can actually see what I'm doing. A lawsuit threatens to derail what would be the nation's first publicly funded religious school, St. Isidore of Seville Virtual Catholic Charter School. The application for St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual Charter School was approved in June by Oklahoma's statewide Virtual Charter School Board, but ever since the application came to light, the school has faced looming legal challenges on the horizon. Can't imagine why. Monday, 9 Oklahomans and Oklahoma Parent Legislative Action Committee, a nonprofit public school advocacy group, came together to file a lawsuit in Oklahoma County's District Court against the Charter School Board for its decision, represented in part by the Freedom from Religion Foundation and the American Civil Liberties Union. At issue are concerns of discriminatory practices such as students being treated differently for their religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability, as well as not providing adequate services for students with disabilities. The suit also lists concerns for student indoctrination, citing language from the school's application, which says St. Isidore would be evangelizing the mission of the church. And that's another really good reason why we have a separation of church and state. Religious schools are allowed to discriminate. They do not have to adhere to discrimination laws, which is why you will never hear me on this channel mention when these religious schools or religious bodies in general get sued for discrimination, because they don't have to follow discrimination laws, which is why I said for better or worse we have a separation of church and state, because it's not to protect the church from the state, but the other way around. Now, granted, it's both ways, because you don't want government telling specific religious institutions how to run their institutions, what religion they should practice. But it's mostly throughout history been the church has been forcing its views on the state. That's how it's historically been. And this is what this wants to do. It wants to force the public to not necessarily promote, but condone one religion over another, which includes discrimination. And granted, I'm not a fan of discrimination. I don't think religious bodies should be allowed to discriminate, but we have a separation of church and state, so as long as we have that, it's allowed. Because, again, the downside of of removing that barrier is that the church, which is already super powerful, you see how many times churches and religion in general is trying to poke their nose in the state's business, trying to find ways to circumvent the separation of church and state so they can become more powerful in the state's business. Is all you need to know that this is in general a good idea. Do I like that allows discrimination? No, I do not. But the alternative is so much worse. But because they are allowed to discriminate, you cannot get public money. If you get public money, you should not be allowed to discriminate. And so these churches, if they want to have a religious school, fine. You want public money for it? Fine. Then you have to adhere to discrimination laws, and you can't push your religious agenda because, anybody should be allowed to go to the school. It's, which would kind of defeat the idea of it being a religious school then. But that's why you cannot have public monies to religious schools. You cannot force a religion on public school students. You cannot discriminate in public schools. And that's what they want. They want a public religious school. And that is an oxymoron. You cannot have that. Anyway, the very idea of a religious public school is a constitutional oxymoron. Yes, it is. Said Daniel Mock, director of the ACLU program on freedom of religion and belief. Charter schools, like all public schools, must be open to all students, and they must be free from religious indoctrination. St. Isidore will be neither. Exactly. It's just not possible. Either you're a public school or you're a religious school. You can't do both. The suit also refers to an improper management structure headed by the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, which would violate board regulations. Plaintiffs are asking the court to step in to block St. Isidore from operating as a charter school, stop the charter school board from entering into or implementing any contracts, and prevent the state from funding St. Isidore. Which makes you wonder why this charter school board allowed this. In theory, they should know the law. State Superintendent Ryan Walters, who was named as a defendant in the lawsuit, issued a statement. It is time to end atheism as the state-sponsored religion. Oh, you're one of those idiots. All right. Suing and targeting the Catholic virtual charter school is religious persecution because of one's faith. No, it's not. Which is the very reason that religious freedom is constitutionally protected. And here you are railing against atheism, which you claim is a religion. So, pick one. A warped perversion of history has created a modern-day concept that all religious freedom is driven from the classrooms. No. Forcing someone to adhere to your idea of Christianity is not religious freedom. You want to have a religious school? Awesome, do that. But you cannot force people to be religious. You cannot force people to be a specific religion. It's just that simple. Doing that does not make you an atheist. Secularism is not atheism. It just means that you are not forcing people to be a specific religion. Even if you were to claim atheism is a religion, which is a huge-ass oxymoron, even if you were to claim that, Telling people that they cannot be forced into believing your religious views is not atheism. Nobody is saying you are not allowed to believe in whatever God it is you believe in. Nobody is doing that. Secularism is simply everybody has the right to believe what they want. If you want to start a religious school and want only people who believe in your vision of Christianity, fine. Nobody's stopping you. But telling the public, which you claim that everyone should have religious freedom, but yet you are going to force the public. You're going to force Muslims, Buddhists, atheists, all Jews, all these religions to fund your school, but yet you're claiming that this is religious freedom. No, that is not religious freedom. That is you telling every other religion plus whatever Christianity that isn't your brand of Christianity, telling them that they must fund a school that they do not agree with. How is that religious freedom again? Because it's not. It's not like this is some humongous church that the general public is this huge church where they tithe. That is not how this works. You want to have a religious school and have the congregation pay towards that school, that's entirely up to you. That's entirely up to your church. You cannot force people who do not practice that religion or that brand of religion into giving money to that religion. It's just not how separation of church and state works. And it sure as hell doesn't make it atheism. Because you're just screaming you have no idea what atheism means. Which is not surprising because none of these dipshits who are screaming from the rooftops that their religion should somehow have preferential treatment seems to know what atheism, religious freedom, or separation of church and state, what any of those concepts mean. They just don't. Okay. Questions still surround the legitimacy of the school board's decision to approve St. Isidore's application. Brand new board appointee Brian Bobeck wasn't eligible to vote at that time, according to Attorney General's office. Without Bobeck's vote, the motion wouldn't have passed. I'm going to guess that he's one of these religious nutjobs that thinks that the public should fund his religion, but at the same time, his religion doesn't have to adhere to whatever other public businesses do because somehow his religion is special. So yeah, I would say that there are questions around the legitimacy because again, it's literally unconstitutional. All right. The statewide virtual charter school board made headlines recently for voting to hire as its legal representation the Alliance for Defending Freedom. Oh, there's a shock. A group designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. Because they, along with, was it yesterday, 2 days ago, that I did a story about the Eau Claire teacher who decided to hire a conservative law firm, a very famous one, just as famous as this Alliance Defending Freedom, basically outed herself as being so right-wing that she thinks that her religion should trump anybody else's rights. Same thing with this one. The Alliance Defending Freedom only defends the freedom for their group to do whatever the hell they want. Whereas everybody else has to kowtow to them because somehow they're special or something. But anyway, that is the end of that article. And hopefully we will get updates of what's happening with that case, because that is so brazen, so blatant, unconstitutional, unconstitutionally against the separation of church and state. If you truly believe in religious freedom, you will understand that making the public support a religious school is completely against it, because everybody should have the freedom to support whatever religious institution they want. Yes, it's a school, but it's a religious school. And people who aren't Christian, or like I said, that particular brand of Christianity, should not be forced to give money to that institution. They should be able to be allowed to choose which school, which religious organization, whatever, to give to. They should not be forced to give to a school that some people might find offensive, like the fact that they're allowed to discriminate against whichever group that you're a part of, and you just don't want to give money to an organization that does that. Well, obviously, if you're paying for their support and taxes, you're literally doing just that, and you should not have to. So, true people who advocate for religious freedom should be against this charter school being public, because it is a religious school and goes completely against religious freedom. So anyway, I will end it there, and I will see you guys in the next video.